Heeh. Good morning, Prof. Otto.
Yes, good morning. Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Thank you.
Bagaimana di sana?
Ya,
Sehat-sehat?
Alhamdulillah sehat. Bagaimana Prof. Otto, sehat ya?
Ya, sehat juga, sehat juga. Ya.
Ya, terima kasih, terima kasih.
Ya.
It's your weekend ya. Sorry to bother you.
It's okay. I like this very much. It's an honor.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah. But also for you, I think.
Yes.
Or is it?
Yeah.
Is it? Are you regularly working?
The weekend is it's a good time for the student to get together, because the weekday they go to class.
Yeah.
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 I also noticed someone from the embassy of Brussels. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There are someone.
Bagus.
Yeah. Thank you for the attendance.
Tapi mahasiswa dan staf kerja nanti sekarang di rumah saja.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but August we will have they come to class.
Kampus.
Yeah. Sudah banyak. There are more students coming to campus.
Ya. Tapi itu juga bagus ya. Ada hubungan dengan banyak mahasiswa dan teman pakai Zoom.
Iya.
Bagus juga. Di mana-mana saja, karena ada orang lihat dari Brussel mungkin, atau di Belanda juga.
Ya, betul.
Ya.
Yeah, I announce to public because this is interesting topic, Prof. Okay, I think we will start. Yeah. Okay, are you ready?
Yes. All right, I can share the screen.
Okay, I'll have some announcement first.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi di Belanda dan selamat sore di Bogor, di Indonesia. Terima kasih. Thank you to all students and also guests yang telah menghadiri kuliah tamu dari Profesor Dr. Otto Hospes, is Professor Wageningen University and Research, and also adjunct professor of IPB University. Kita akan mendengarkan salah satu topik penting mengenai palm oil. Nah, salah satu produk palm oil yang sangat kita kenal adalah minyak goreng. Dan minyak goreng ini, cooking oil, is dalam perspektif konsumen, this is one of the most important consumer need, especially in Indonesian culture, di mana kita every food was fried, so we need a lot of cooking oil, and also product coming from palm oil are very sangat banyak produk-produk turunan itu sangat banyak sekali. Nah, karena itu public policy ini sangat penting karena related to environment and also sustainable development goals. Thank you untuk semua Bapak dan Ibu yang telah hadir di dalam Zoom ini. Bagi yang tidak dapat masuk ke Zoom, silakan join via YouTube because the capacity is 300. We almost 300 people here. Okay, so then go to the YouTube, Okay, Pak Otto, silakan please, your time.
All right. I will start sharing my screen. Professor Ujang, is it visible now?
That's great. Can slide
All right.
Yeah.
Well, good afternoon. I'm very happy to have been invited by Professor Ujang to give a guest lecture for you. Today's topic is about public policy of palm oil industry in Indonesia. As Professor Ujang explained, this commodity, palm oil, is a very important commodity in Indonesia, but also the world. Today I'm going to talk a bit about implications for green business and the SDGs. Well, I hope you can also join and use the chat. Is that possible, Professor Ujang?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Because at some point in time, I will invite you to comment or share your views. Or let's see how that works.
Ya. Oke, teman-teman.
Ya.
Silakan menuliskan di chat ya. Kalau ingin bertanya ya, please.
Right. Before starting, again, I would like to express my gratitude also for the collaboration with IPB. I'm really pleased to work together with Professor Ujang, Professor Arya, and others in this endeavor, in this field. And this Wageningen University IPB connection, I think it's strong and also promising. Right from the very start, I invite you as mahasiswa to consider joining the master program for a part, maybe in Wageningen, and maybe even to consider doing a PhD at Wageningen University. I'm happy to supervise 4 Indonesian PhD students. And maybe this is a dream for you in the coming future.
Thank you.
All right. Bit about me. I like teaching very much. Can you still see it?
Yes. Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
My background, being a political scientist, been traveling a lot to Indonesia for a long time, more than 35 times, doing research a lot about Indonesia. And the last 15 years I've been very much engaged in palm oil governance, palm oil specialist, and I'm also a poet and a dad. This is important to add. That is certainly an identity of myself. I have a question for you right at the start of this lecture. Suppose there's an orchestra, and how many then conductors should an orchestra have? Can it be 3? Should it be 1? And then and then which one are the best? Can you maybe share in the chat box how many conductors should an orchestra have? Please.
Ya, please. Tulis ya. Ada pertanyaan dari Prof Otto ya. Berapa seharusnya yang menjadi konduktor? Silakan. Oke, teman-teman, silakan tulis di chat.
Yeah, I see a lot of messages coming in. Thanks. I can see a lot of participants saying, well, it's 1. not 3 or 2. I think they have a point, just 1. Thanks so much for your 1 or more, depending on the conditions. Wow, that's
Interesting.
an interesting answer. And maybe you can shift to that other question, which ones are the best? Suppose there's, let's say, the musicians are all from Indonesia. And which conductor then is the best? Could it be a lady conductor, male conductor? Should the person be from Indonesia? Or doesn't itu tergantung? Is it depending on something else? What are your views on this? Maybe you can also add your comments, your views in the chat. Yeah, Eugenia, that's a nice answer. The one that understands the piece best, or is the closest to the orchestra members. Yeah. In the Netherlands, a conductor was appointed, one of the best orchestras of the Netherlands, and the conductor is 28 years old. What do you think? Anyone that's capable and understands how to would be awesome. Okay. All right. It's very much about capacities, understanding, feeling what is necessary, having a connection with the orchestra, and then directing. Right. A good leader and knows the piece that's being played musically the best. Yeah, keep that in mind. Yeah, nice answer, Martin. Nice answer. Let's see whether there's another one coming. Otherwise, we shift gears and go to the next slide. All right. Thanks so much for your contributions in the chat. On this issue of how to conduct an orchestra, of course, one could stand still, maybe not that wise. There's no directions given to the orchestra, or focus on one group of musicians. That's an option for sure. But then the other musicians are waiting for the directions and start to make music too late, or this leads to a cacophony. And the final option, of course, could be, this is not a secret, many conductors do this, they balance the attention of all groups, and exactly at the time needed, they give directions to some group of musicians. That's a bit of obvious, of course. But now, suppose the Palma goers of Indonesia, there's 2.5 million smallholders. Indonesia is the biggest producer and exporter of this commodity. This is a big industry in Indonesia. Suppose these Palma growers, they are the musicians to make SDG music. So to produce in such a way that many of the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, are being realized, are being touched upon. It could be environmental ones, it could be economic ones on health, suppose these palm oil growers, they are the musicians. Who should then be the conductor, and how to conduct? And I have 4 options for you, and I'd like you to also share in the chat which options you think is the best. Huh? Should it be the chair of the Roundtable on Sustainable Palm Oil, this very large roundtable with 5,000 members coming from all over the world, businesses and NGOs, discussing principles and criteria and the implementation of it? Or should it be the EU and EU countries, the EU being the 3rd largest importer of palm oil? Palm oil, as you know, is consumed widely also in EU and EU countries in so many of products, food products, hygiene, etc., etc. Or should it be the 6 biggest palm oil companies to direct? Well, sometimes it's the musician or one of the musicians who stand up and act as the conductor. Or should it be the government of Indonesia to act as the conductor, to set regulations and policies in tune, in sync, and to contribute to the SDGs, and the palm oil growers to contribute to the SDGs? What do you think? Please, maybe you can share in the chat. 1, 2, 3, or 4. Firna, thank you so much. That's a nice name, Firna Kerin. The government of Indonesia must be the conductor. Number 1 says seorang. I choose number 4, Yuna. Nurmala 4, the government of Indonesia. Sandy says 4, Mohammed Reski as well. Okay, I think it's 4, says Lulu. Right? Quite some say 4. All right. All right, thanks. There's quite some people saying 4. Masuk akal. And I'm happy with your your participation and contribution, because I've also prepared something where indeed the government of Indonesia is the conductor. So this picture puts the government of Indonesia in the center, and as the conductor, not just for the palm oil growers, but also to see to it that their ways of producing contribute to the Sustainable Development Goals. But I've added the other options as well. Why? Because time and again, these other players also want to be the conductor or claim to be the conductor. Through their regulations, they direct the orchestra, the palm oil growers, and I'll come to that later. Let's take the government of Indonesia, well, as the conductor, and then see what are the challenges of this conductor. It's interesting also to just one thing before we go into the different challenges, to mention that bakar, the oil that you use in Indonesia, to produce food, it's widely used. But there's in the Netherlands, for instance, advertisements on margarine tanpa minyak. So without palm oil. So consumers or consumer bodies, they come with different ideas also. But let's continue. My starting argument is that as a conductor, the government of Indonesia has not only to govern the palm oil growers, well, to some extent that would be easy, to some extent, but also local governments. And I come to that, the RSPO, the Roundtable on Sustainable Palm Oil, the EU and EU countries, and the big palm oil companies as well. So the conductor is not facing one group of musicians, the palm oil growers, but the orchestra basically is somewhat larger. And that's a challenge for the government of Indonesia very much. So this is basically the act of conducting. The government of Indonesia, so much concerned with the palm oil growers for different reasons, but also has to see how to get the provincial governments and the district governments implementing national policies. And the government of Indonesia also has to orchestrate or respond to the RSPO as an organization and standard, and the same goes for the EU and the EU countries. And finally, the 6 biggest palm oil companies as well. So this is how orchestration looked like, in my view. I'm a political scientist, meaning that I'm studying a lot governance issues, so steering. So in ordinary terms, orchestrating, steering society, orchestrating. Now, the remainder of the presentation looks as follows. I will just briefly present the commitment at the highest level to SDGs and sustainable palm oil in Indonesia, and then discuss 5 challenges for the government of Indonesia as a conductor. The commitment to the SDGs gets very high support. So it's through a INPRES, the presidential regulations, that there's a strong commitment of Indonesia, the government, to implement and also to achieve sustainable development goals. This was done in 2017. And in the field of palm oil, the government uses different policy instruments to try and promote sustainable palm oil. Interestingly, quite some of them started before the government or the president decreed his commitment to the SDGs. But what one can see is in later documents, there's strong connections being made by the government to these instruments to say that each of them contributes to the SDGs. So the ISPO, the Indonesian Sustainable Palm Oil Standard, started in 2011 already. Interestingly, it was the Ministry of Agriculture taking the initiative, and later it was supported also with a presidential decree. The forest moratorium, there have been several of them, extended 3 times, also starting in 2011, and confirmed also by presidential decree. To come to a comprehensive approach addressing different problematics with working on sustainable palm oil, in 2014, the RAN SKB was launched, the National Action Plan for Sustainable Palm Oil, also inviting different ministries to take their share and get engaged in the implementation. Interestingly, or maybe sadly so, in quite some debates in Europe, there's hardly any knowledge about the different measures taken by the government of Indonesia to promote sustainable palm oil. There's little of interest. It's easily overstepped, as it were, and I think that is a pity. This is to show that the government of Indonesia is serious about working on sustainable palm oil. But this is not easy. And here come 5 challenges for the conductor being the government of Indonesia, which I highly appreciate. I mean, I think the government of Indonesia is key, a critical player in this whole field. So in developing effective public policies that make a difference for sustainability, for sustainable palm oil, but also make an impression and stand strong also internationally. Let's start with the first challenge. Well, one thing is to design a national action plan in Jakarta, but another one is to implement it and to find also support from provincial and district governments. And decentralization, the processes of decentralization, of course, they can bring a lot to regional and also local development, but there's also a downside to it. There's room for interpretation. There's room to twist or even deny national plans. And by and large, we can see that from the national to the regional and the local, it's not always that the national action plan is strictly adhered to. And all kinds of dynamics play a role at either the regional or at the concession level. So how to seek and how to find alignment, how to make a plan effective, also in contributing to the SDGs in a country, a huge country that has committed so much to processes of decentralization, giving so much of mandates to the lower authorities. The second challenge, ladies and gentlemen, is about the community and company conflicts in palm oil producing areas. The government of Indonesia is very much aware of this, but it can also be an Achilles heel of the government policy. As long as there's tensions or conflicts, public, between community and companies, it's difficult also for Indonesia to make a stand also internationally. And I think the government is very much aware of that. And tries to seek ways, jalan keluar, also solutions, how to address these conflicts. I've been conducting together with Professor Wart Berenschot and Indonesian researchers a 3-year research in this. And currently we are producing several publications. And we found in that research that in many cases that we studied, 150 in depth, land was taken without consent. So this principles of free, prior, and informed consent was not being acknowledged. And well, of course, if you want to use land for cultivation, for your livelihood, and it's then being taken without consent, I think I myself, I also would protest, like this cannot be true. And another major complaint was that there were problems with profit sharing in the plasma systems. So where the share given to the producers was lower than expected or later given. this is something we cannot deny, put away. The national government, but also provincial and local governments, in my view, have to take this into account and not run away. They are not, but it's a difficult situation. And I'm curious also about your views on this. I'm wondering whether the omnibus law is a step forward or a step back in this connection. It was ratified not long ago. It was clearly meant to help business getting licenses more easy, or the producers, the procedures for that. And according to one source, also offering a grace period of 3 years to apply for the proper paperwork. So to have a redesignation of the forest that companies reportedly are illegally occupying to a non-forest designation. So I think the omnibus law is super interesting, but a major question when we are discussing also impact on green business or the contribution to the SDGs. Is it SDG proof? May very much help to overcome a lot of paperwork for business. But a big question is whether this is indeed SDG proof. And sooner or later, I think the government or researchers have to come with answers to that. The third challenge, is about this relationship with the RSPO as a standard and organization. In my view, the challenge is to define a constructive relationship. There have been times where the RSPO and also the government of Indonesia were battling a bit about standards and what standards, the global one of the RSPO or the national one of the government of Indonesia is best or should be leading. But by and large, what the two share is their vision of sustainable palm oil and making sustainable palm oil the norm for the global market. So they're really friends in terms of vision, but find it difficult to develop a constructive relationship. And just a brief picture, by the way, is a bit outdated. I couldn't find a more recent one, but it gives you an idea. The RSPO, established 2004, registered under Swiss law, and as I said, with this vision of transforming markets to make sustainable palm oil the norm. Well, this could also be the vision of the government of Indonesia, whether the coordinating Ministry of Economic Affairs or the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, or even agriculture, or maybe in the first place, agriculture. The membership is large, 5,000 companies from all over the world, from all kinds of sectors. And as you know, Indonesia belongs to the top two. Basically, it's the number one in this field. But what we see is that in terms of membership, Indonesia and the producers are not dominant. It's the you can see it from the picture. The oil palm growers, they are important, but a minority in the RSPO. And the same goes for the participants or the participation from Indonesia. So it's the processes and the traders, which are many of them non-Indonesian or based outside Indonesia, that form the largest share, and it's mostly also non-Indonesians. So it's let's say a foreign conductor. It has a feeling for the sector very much, but it's a foreign conductor. And interestingly, the RSPO and ISPO, they are a bit of look-alikes. There are differences, but I've listed here the RSPO principles. I'm not going to read them one by one, but what I try to show you in this picture is that the principles of the ISPO, they look alike the RSPO. So one could say the RSPO and the ISPO, or the principles, they want the same. They have the same idea. They have a people, planet, profit idea when looking at palm oil. One could say enfant la lettre, before the term was really booming. They have an SDG philosophy, both, which is super interesting. And this picture shows that indeed the principles of the RSPO match with quite some of the SDGs. Maybe not all, but a considerable number. So the RSPO, one could say, in terms of principles and criteria, is SDG proof. Well, which leads to a question. If both the RSPO as a foreign conductor and the government of Indonesia want to make sustainable palm oil the norm, well, why not take steps towards mutual recognition schemes? The RSPO and the government both strongly adhere to the sustainable development goals. Why not develop one global standard? And I know recently there's been a workshop also organized by the Coordinating Ministry of Economic Affairs to discuss this idea, to have one global standard. And well, with that, there are also technicalities and discussing the development towards an integrated certification scheme. So maybe at some point in time, there can be two conductors to orchestrate. They have the same vision, or the RSPO can be a stand-in. I don't know, for the government of Indonesia to act as a conductor. Time and again, I find it surprising that there's not more of collaboration and a race to the top, not to the bottom, but to the top, making palm oil mainstream in the market. So a collaboration between the RSPO and the government of Indonesia and this. Right, we come to the fourth challenge. We're nearly there. We've got 5. And the fourth challenge would be to provide a regulatory framework for self-regulation by big palm oil companies. Now, this seems a bit contradictory. So a regulatory framework for self-regulation. But in my view, never can there be, well, when we live in a world with governments, that there's full and only self-regulation. There's always a government around, and at least it has to provide the rules of the game for self-regulation, the extent to which palm oil companies can conduct self-regulation. And I'll give you an example of this, an example that supports my argument that I just mentioned, that there's a need for a regulatory framework for self-regulation, which could lead to a win-win situation for both the government and also the big palm oil companies. The case is from the IPOP, and the IPOP stands for, well, Indonesians like, well, even more than Dutch people. They use many abbreviations. It's the land of abbreviations. And IPOP has been much used, but here it stands for Indonesian Palm Oil Pledge. This one, pledge, so a commitment, it's a commitment, was launched at the summit in New York, so outside Indonesia, in September 2014, quite a while ago. And there were 4 very large companies involved. They said Asian Agri, Cargill, Golden Agri Resources, and Wilmar. They said, we commit ourselves to zero deforestation. Okay, talking green business. ladies and gentlemen, this is really green business. This is the businesses saying, we do not want to slow down deforestation. We commit ourselves to zero deforestation. And a few months later, two other big ones joined. So we had 6 companies organizing themselves and committing themselves to zero deforestation. Fortunately, well, in my view, unfortunately, the IPOP was self-disbanded. There were reasons for that. The government of Indonesia was not that happy seeing this initiative and accused the IPOP as forming a cartel, too big, too powerful. Well, that is certainly a good reason to be critical. The government was also concerned that the IPOP would be too strong. So a bit of threaten too much smallholders and weaken smallholders. And the government also felt that the IPOP was ignoring state rule-making authority. Yes, there were reasons to doubt the justification of the IPOP. But the companies, they were not disencouraged to the extent that they stopped with this policy. They cunningly adapted their policy or the name of it. And started to use the term of NDPE very much. And the companies, instead of having a joint exercise, they individually pursued NDPE policy, standing for no deforestation, no peatland, and no exploitation. And well, ladies and gentlemen, this is so much SDG proof. Here you can see both, environmental SDGs, but also social SDGs, so no exploitation. So my question is, if the NDPE policies are SDG proof, how can the government of Indonesia support these policies? And of course, one of the tools is to provide a regulatory framework for that, or to engage, of course, in with the large companies on the issue of the implementation of NDPE, and to seek how to align their policies and implementation with government regulations, and to, well, of course, foster collaboration between provincial and local governments on this, because, well, as you know, the proof is in the eating of the pudding. So at the concession level, there is where the policy has to work. So it means that the government of Indonesia, as a conductor, faces the challenge of having local governments and regional governments sitting together with business on the NDPE policy. I find it a very interesting issue and question. One of my Indonesian PhDs, Ahmad Darmawan, is about to finish his PhD on this topic and defending in October. But there's many more questions to be explored here. I mentioned a few of them. Right, my last challenge for you. Mind you, these are 5 challenges. It means, you know, the government needs you. Prepare for a position at the ministry, the coordinating ministry of economic affairs or foreign affairs, agriculture, working on these challenges, because the government, this public agency, is to play a key role. And maybe this one, the last one for you in the menu, is the biggest challenge. I'm also working on it through research. It's about addressing due diligence legislation of the EU and EU countries. And I'll explain, of course, what is due diligence and how Indonesia the government respond. This provides a table. This provides an overview of the different due diligence regulations of the EU and EU member countries. You see some of them are from the EU, starting 2008 with this EU regulation on illegal unreported undercover fishing. The Renewable Energy Directive, quite famous. The first one was launched in 2009. At that time, there were not stringent regulations on the import of palm oil. This changed, of course, with the revised EU Renewable Energy Directive, but they provide prescriptions on the import of global commodities. They provide prescriptions on business and what business should do or not do, on what timber to source, and what timber can be imported. And the same goes for conflict minerals. The European Parliament adopted a resolution very recently on corporate due diligence and corporate accountability in 2021. And this will further develop. And at the same time, EU member countries have launched different due diligence regulations. They differ a lot in scope, in detail, in requirements. It's enormous. One could say cacophony. They're not aligned. But at the same time, they all point in the same direction. We want business, our international business, to behave differently. Therefore, the Netherlands adopted this child labor due diligence law. It's only on child labor. It has a limited scope. Norway is focusing more on transparency. The UK adopted the Modern Slavery Act, and also in France and Germany, kind of due diligence regulations were adopted. And there's an ongoing discussion now on how to align these different regulations of EU member countries, so with a regulation or a framework at the EU level. And I think this is after, say, the rise and proliferation of the RSPO and other, say, private initiatives that so much have set the debate and also affected also government policy in Indonesia. I think after that, this proliferation provides the new and biggest challenge for the government of Indonesia as a conductor. How to conduct if the EU and EU member countries make these claims so much as conductors or as faraway conductors, foreign conductors, as telecoupled conductors, some scholars say. This is really to give you an idea of the enormous amount and the diversity also, but the scope, the massiveness of the regulations coming from the EU and EU member countries, which will lead to questions and challenges for the government of Indonesia. Due diligence, what is it? Briefly, steps that a company must take to become aware of, prevent, and address adverse impacts. And adverse impacts, it's usually understood as impacts in terms of on the environment and in terms of human rights. So it's about the green and the social part of the SDGs, one could say. And this figure is from the OECD. The OECD has been very active in developing, say, guidelines on due diligence. And here you can see 6 steps in due diligence processes. I'm not going to discuss them into detail, but you can see the scope of it. And this step number 2, I want to highlight, it's about the identification of assessment of adverse impacts. And there's a discussion whether this is on actual impact or potential impact in operations, supply chains, and business relationships. And why this would matter for a big country like Indonesia, being a main exporter of palm oil? Well, the critical concept, ladies and gentlemen, is about corporate accountability. Meaning, in short, companies based in Europe, they are accountable for negative impacts caused abroad by their subsidiaries or suppliers. So the accountability doesn't stop at the border of an EU country or at the EU, but goes beyond that, is extraterritorial. So the companies, they are accountable for negative impacts caused abroad by their subsidiaries or suppliers. So any kind of expert on palm oil knows how complex global value chains in the field of palm oil are, with many subsidiaries and many suppliers. So just think about measuring impact. Who is going to measure that? It says negative impacts. There's no discussion on positive impacts. I showed you in the former slide, there's also this step on offering compensation. How on earth is it going to be organized? So there's many questions for the government of Indonesia as the, I think, main conductor of this orchestra of palm growers, and it has also to seek how to come to terms with all these due diligence regulations, this proliferation, this wave of due diligence regulations from Europe. And yeah, the question is, how can or should the government of Indonesia respond? It can ignore, it can say, look, this is Europe and they come with a crazy idea again, or copying, in a way, maybe the government of Indonesia did in the case of the RSPO, ISPO, collaborating, but then how? The government of Indonesia has not been involved in the design. So what does collaboration mean? Is it then simply the one to implement? Can it protest? But then where and with whom? As I showed you, there's many places where these due diligence regulations are being developed. So there's many capitals. Can Indonesia develop its own due diligence legislation, or is there maybe another way of responding in such a way that the conductor still controls the orchestra, but doesn't see the European section to make its own noise, as it were. And can the government of Indonesia then agree with EU countries that due diligence legislation is SDG proof? Mind you, ladies and gentlemen, every EU country promoting this due diligence legislation makes a reference to the SDGs, saying that the due diligence legislation is in sync with SDGs. Which makes it difficult to upfront and in a very direct way disagree with this legislation. And the last question is, what does it mean? I showed you at the very beginning 4 options of the, let's say, ideal conductor for the orchestra consisting of palm growers. I asked you, which one do you think is the best? Most of you, nearly all, favored the government of Indonesia. But what does this mean? Does this mean the proliferation of due diligence legislation, that the EU or the EU countries are taking over the role of conductor from the government of Indonesia promoting sustainable palm oil? This is not just a policy question, but also a question for research. I think in the coming years, a lot of research will be done and has to be done on this matter. Yeah, I've come to the end of my presentation. And want to say terima kasih banyak. As you can see from the pictures, research can only flourish through collaboration. and developing sound and long-term relationships with each other. So here you see a picture of different researchers that I've been collaborating with happily, and it's even just a selection. So please remember that only research conducted by teams can generate good research and also policy relevant research. So I'm very pleased that time and again I can visit Bogor, Jakarta, and to meet the researchers, to make new plans, and also for them, my Indonesian friends, to come to Wageningen in the Netherlands to discuss things. So thank you so much for listening and your time, and I'm happy to answer questions from your side, but of course I leave that to the good hands of the main conductor of this ceremony, which is Professor Ujang.
Terima kasih. Terima kasih. Oke, mari kita berikan applause. Give applause to Profesor Otto ya. Give your thumbs up. Silakan diberikan reaction, your reaction, tuliskan. Terima kasih Pak Otto, thank you. I think this is a great lecture ya. How important is the oil palm industry, and it looks like so many conductors will be involved ya. Okay, before question and answer, teman-teman silakan tuliskan di chat ya, atau langsung silakan. Who would like to raise question, silakan langsung bisa bicara ya, atau write in the chat room ya. Okay, while we are waiting for the question, Prof Otto, the IPOP ya, IPOP. Is it the initiative of the corporate? I mean, because of the high awareness of the environment, so it looks like the initiative comes. Yeah. How do you look at that situation?
Yeah, very good question. Thanks so much. Yes, it is an initiative. It was an initiative of the big palm oil companies themselves, but yes, we also have to see, the context and the backgrounds of it. Ahmad Dermawan has very much looked into that. We've also published 1 or 2 articles on this, and I think I don't have to say that quite often palm oil companies, certainly the big ones, they are blamed for contributing to negative impact of palm oil, and they don't want to be in that position. They disagree, and also have put measures and procedures in place to take away negative impact. It was clearly an attempt at that time in New York to show the world, look, you can blame us all the time, but we have plans as well. We also understand that we cannot continue with deforestation all the time. We want to, so they want to also make an impression on the ones that critiqued the companies, very often NGOs. So many environmental NGOs, they applauded the initiative. They were very, very happy. And interestingly also, that's another kind of result of the study of Ahmad Dermawan. Whenever there's complaints from NGOs, also from Indonesian NGOs, monitoring particularly the RSPO companies, whenever there's a complaint, they take up the complaint to investigate what is the matter. And then I cut a long story short, but then engaging with their suppliers or subsidiaries on how to address a problem. So it is not true that companies hide away. So they're triggered by NGOs. They have committed at that time to the zero deforestation, and whenever there is a critique today in this world of social media, you cannot hide.
Yes.
That was also interesting. Of course, also for these companies, it's not easy. We know that there's different layers. The national headquarters, the provincial, and at the concession level, there will be. To us, this is still a black box. But you know, Professor Ujang, that is also a bit of market intelligence. So how to do research with business in a both transparent way, but also giving respect to the market intelligence of a company. That's a challenge. That's a challenge because as soon as there's negative publicity, you know that, then this negative publicity is being used by a Dutch NGO. And it's spread, it's spread in the news. So for companies, they also face a dilemma. How transparent do we want to be? When we would face the risk that is being spread all over the world. So even this, I think many of these companies are serious. You know, they want to make a change. They want to address the issue, but they are afraid that there's one tiny negative publicity that it's being which is unfair, I think. But it's interesting to see what are the initiatives among business. That's I think very, and we use also theoretical terms for that, corporate political action. So the CPA literature is that, which investigates this matter. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Prof. Otto.
Yeah.
Yeah. Silakan, Bapak Ibu, student, you want to raise question, write in chat room, or you can just directly. Terima kasih Pak Setiawan Sunitono, ini our faculty staff member. He attend the lecture. Pak Setiawan, mungkin bisa menambahkan. You can add, please. Yeah, still mute. Yeah, you can on. Ini Dr. Setiawan. Yeah.
Yeah. First of all, thank you very much, Professor Otto. For the lecture, and and I don't know, you are now in Indonesia or in Wageningen?
Sekarang saya di rumah saja, karena universitas tutup, jadi saya kerja di rumah. Tidak apa-apa, ada hubungan dengan bapak dan ibu saya. Jadi, tapi saya sekarang di Belanda, di Wageningen.
As I know, it is in Netherlands now is more warm than in Indonesia.
Begini.
Yeah. No, but I like actually to question some basic assumptions. In many discussions on palm oil. First of all, that palm oil agribusiness and industry is subject to be conducted, as a kind of a kind of a managerial way. The second basic assumption is that the government of Indonesia, for example, is position itself above all parties. That the government can take the role as a conductor of palm oil, for example, palm oil industry. Conductor means that it stands above all the parties, like that, for example. And related to that is the basic assumption that the government is like a one voice, one monolithic unit, which is from national to local, which is in Indonesia is very questionable. You hear national policies on palm oil, but
Yeah.
at the ground level, what happened is quite different. You know,
Yeah.
and that also the basic assumptions that the expansion of palm oil agribusiness and industry is good for Indonesian economy. Indonesian economy is now Indonesian palm oil is now #1 in the world. But as you say, Indonesia itself is not the conductor of this palm oil agribusiness and industry. The industry is in Singapore and in Malaysia. We are actually like in the colonial time, just the plantation. Yeah. And those are the basic assumptions, that I questioned. And I like to remind us the weakness of economy that is based on too much on one product, like the banana republics in Latin America. And then one comment is on the commitment of the big actors in the agribusiness and industry of palm oil, or for not to cut new forests anymore. I'm afraid that this will not limit the expansion of palm oil. So the palm oil will expand through intrusion in local agriculture land. And that means taking land from the local farmers. And what does this mean for the local economy, but also for the local, for the national economy? Those are questions that I have in my mind. Thank you very much.
Well, these are a lot of questions, huh? And I think maybe I can pick some. Thanks so much for your.
But other students can try to look at these questions too. Yeah, just not for you, but for the whole.
So of course, I've on purpose used the metaphor of the conductor, and I'm also so happy to see that most of you agree that the government of Indonesia is the conductor compared to the other ones. And I think this idea of Indonesia just being a plantation, I think that has changed. I think for the good. And what I like so much of various government officials, of Pak Mahendra Siregar and Ibu Musdalifah, that they really try to orchestrate. They do not accept the terms that are being imposed on them. They want to set the terms to make the music. So at the same time, I know, I agree with you, Satywan, that this is also a bit of a simplified story, a simplified metaphor. Because even talking Jakarta, there's 4 to 8 ministries engaged with palm oil. So who at the national level is also the conductor. And so there's an issue of collaboration. But also there, I think time has changed. I think my general observation is that palm oil used to be very much in the corner of the Ministry of Agriculture. Rightly so, it's completely understandable. But now economic affairs and foreign affairs are taking the lead. I think these two ministries, they are the conductors now. And does it mean that also the problems with expansion and intrusion with smallholders has disappeared? I don't think so. I'm not saying that. What I so much appreciate of the latest 5-7 years, that the government really tries to be a conductor and tries to see that, okay, what is happening there at the smallholder level? okay, how can we manage? And not is running away. In a way, and that's one of my hobbies, hobby horses. I so much hope and wish that the government of Indonesia becomes a very modern new conductor that can play can play and orchestrate different musicians, meaning the European Union, meaning the smaller associations, meaning the big companies. I think that is what I wish, but also what to study. I'm also a researcher. I'm curious about these developments. Yeah, that's a bit of what I could say to you. No, it's not like Indonesia has no problems at all with palm oil. It's not true. But how to manage, how to address, how to collaborate with the big business, how to collaborate with the EU or address their kind of, again, quite, well, neo-colonial terms. I think that is a mistake. It will lead to problems. It will lead to new clashes, and this is not the way forward, in my view. All right. I see a question. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Pak Setiawan. Yeah, thank you. Terima kasih, Pak Setiawan. Ini there is one more question from Bapak Wicaksono. You can explain directly, Pak.
Yeah, let me see.
I think in chat, can you read in the chat room?
Yes, I can read it. I'm trying to find it now. All right. Okay. It should be the conductor, and then let me. All right. Now I see it. Yeah. Thank you for the question. Very good question.
Yeah, from Pak Gunawan Wicaksono, please.
Yeah, very good question. Yeah, yeah. And right, yeah. I think your question, it's on the due diligence and the impact on the small-scale farmers, and how the government of Indonesia best approach the issue. And at the same time, yes, there's this issue regarding the EU RED II still going on. Super good question. Yeah. That are the questions that we need to research. First of all, asking also smallholders and smallholders associations how they would react and respond. This is also a bit of a technological question. It's a governance issue, but also a technological question. But thanks for raising, Pak Gunawan, the question. It shows how little has been thought, and the thinking through of due diligence legislation and the implications for smallholders, and it's not there. It's not there. So the first thing you and I can say to the legislators and also to scholars, very interesting idea. but do you know that there's 2.5 million smallholders in Indonesia, and how on earth do you think they can contribute also to the implementation of the due diligence legislation? And mind you, suppose as some study shows that nearly half of the smallholders they do not meet certain criteria, or they contribute to environmental problems, what would then be the effect of the due diligence legislation? Of course, we can sense that there could be a similar impact as compared to the Renewable Energy Directive. No import of palm oil for making biofuels. And then the question is whether the due diligence legislation aggravates that. So your point is super good. Raise this point in discussions, get it on the research agenda, and make EU legislators and scholars and policymakers aware that they have simply ignored a very, very important problem. It's outrageous. It's a big mistake. Now, with the Renewable Energy Directive, the things were very, in a way, clear, certainly with the revised one, because it contains stipulations on palm oil. What will happen with the due diligence legislations? Will there be follow-up regulations for different commodities? What will then be the result for palm oil? Will they follow and copy the revised Renewable Energy Directive? There's quite a chance, because the revised Renewable Energy Directive is about energy and environment. It's not so much about the SDGs on poverty alleviation. So it's a siloed regulation. It's one-dimensional. But it may be taken as a point of reference in the implementation of due diligence and the specification of due diligence legislation. Yeah. So this is a massive thing, in my view. And scholars and policymakers in the East need to work together to address this, in my view.
Ya, terima kasih Pak Otto. Pak Wicaksono, apakah ingin menambahkan? Would you like to add? Yeah, it looks like that. Okay, terima kasih.
Sama-sama.
All the awareness of the companies is getting higher about the issue of deforestation and also the ecological problems. I think, in one way, I think move ahead. So not only they rely on the government who should talk and talk, but they have their own initiative. But
I think so.
Do you think that in the consumer side, I mean, because this is also the group of people that we have to educate them, what do you think about that? Not only from the company or the producer side, but it is important also we have to educate them.
I think certainly, but you're an expert on this, Professor Ujang. So it's with some slight hesitation that I share these words. But what I notice, at least in the Netherlands, is that consumers are very sensitive to negative publicity on palm oil.
Oh, okay.
So they you've once also talked with me and asked the question, where does the noise come from? And I still remember. In fact, I've asked a master student to conduct a comparative study of 4 NGOs and their use of social media on palm oil. If the report is ready, I will send it to you.
Yeah, thank you.
But what I want to say is that, I think the younger generation certainly knows the term influencer on social media, influencer. Which are enormously important today, with 500,000 followers, and
yes, that's right.
And what is interesting is that the NGOs in the Netherlands that take a bit of a radical point of view, so they're critical on NGOs on palm oil, compared to what we call the reformist NGOs, like Solidaridad. It likes to talk and collaborate. But the radical NGOs, they share many more of Facebook messages and tweets compared to the reformist NGOs. And so the number of reactions and hits and what is it, the likes with the NGOs that are critical is much higher. So in my view, what I try to say, I think we need to understand and maybe address the influences, because I've asked them also, where do you get your information from?
Yes.
And then I was a bit surprised. They were saying, look, yes, we get information from dari mana saja, but the most important thing is that we want to make an impression. I think influences like these environmental NGOs in the Netherlands, like Greenpeace, Friends of the Earth, they very much shape public opinion. And then the consumer follows.
Okay.
Which I find a pity. So
we have to give the credible sources of information. Okay, there is one more important question in here, Prof. Otto, from Ismail. First of all, I would like to say thank you for your great presentation. Currently, there is issue regarding cooking oil's price that is rising, and also energy uncertainty because of Russia-Ukraine crisis. My question is, what do you think about the issue? Could the issue challenge Indonesia's commitment for sustainable palm oil and also to fulfill the SDG? Thank you.
Wow. Yes. I was expecting that question. Yeah, also a big issue. Yeah, I think in my humble view, and also from a distance, because I don't know all the ins and outs, but I think it really made sense for the government to temporarily prohibit the export, as the government in the first place is responsible for all its citizens and uses of cooking oil. So it really makes sense. And Indonesia didn't start the war in Ukraine, or the thing between Russia and Ukraine. So it was a matter of, and is a matter of, adaptation. So it has to respond. And this is the conductor. It sees that the citizens face trouble. It also noticed, I understood, I was following, of course, the process that the smallholder palm oil, the palm oil growers were not that happy. And they send protests to local and regional governments, making a demand to end the ban, to end the stop of the. And in the end, they did. So here you can see a conductor taking care of the millions, the 100 millions of consumers on the one end, so opting for the stop on the export, and then again, in the end, moving and giving way to the concerns of the 2.5 million of smallholders. So I think that's wise conducting, I would say. SDGs, SDGs are about, they vary from, addressing poverty. So looking at that one, it is super wise to serve the population, all the people that use the cooking oil, but also to stop it, because then the smallholders are being served, and for such a short time span, talking environmental impact, that's beyond what I can discuss. I mean, I don't know, but I wouldn't say that this event has meant that the government is not any longer following and pursuing the SDGs, the government knows very well how important palm oil is also for the rest of the world. So
Yes.
So I think I would give it an 8, a good mark. Yeah, I think it's a very complicated. I also know that things went wrong and there were affairs and investigations, of course, I know that. But by and large, I think, and yeah, it's also a message to the rest of the world. Like now, you want vegetable oil, and you've been very critical about it. And now you find it difficult to accept that we put a barrier on the export. It is also a bit of playing with that. I like that very much. It makes the European Union and the foreign countries wonder, oh, okay. So it can also lead to a stronger position for the government in its negotiations.
Okay.
It shows we are conducting. We can end the export. I of course know that the factories and also the palm oil growers that had difficulties. The flows were and the trade was stopping. I know that, but by and large, I very much like the way the government conducted. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Masih ada lagi yang bertanya? Saya persilakan. Oke, kalau tidak ada, we would like to thank you to Prof. Otto. Oke, Fauzan, you want to ask question? Ya, silahkan, Fauzan. I think there is one more question. We have 5 minutes left. Okay, silahkan, Fauzan.
Yeah, I see it. I'm reading it.
Yeah, you reading it? Okay, that's great.
Right. Solar fuel. Palm oil. That's a question from a chemical expert. Yeah, I think solar fuel. I mean, it's absolutely, I would say, part of our discussions on energy transitions. Whether be it apakah Netherlands, apakah Indonesia, we all are in this process of energy transition. Whilst Indonesia is rich in palm oil and coal, I think rather sooner than later, it will engage also in further, expanding solar energy, so there's the risk. There's the oil curse mechanism. It means when you have plenty of one resource like coal and palm oil, you're not inclined to innovate. So there's a risk there. But it will be one of the future pathways. Indonesia will increase its domestic consumption of palm oil. It will be critical more on the international trade and the terms of trade. It will discuss due diligence partnerships, etc., etc. But I think it will also start, I hope on a large scale, developing solar energy plants. We have many debates here in the Netherlands about our households, having batteries at our home where we can feed the battery with solar energy. On my house, there are 16 of these screens. Wow, so in terms of energy, I'm self-sufficient, and that could be a future development but that's a question, a massive question on energy transitions. Which requires technical solutions, but also governance approaches. How to get there? You're on the right business.
Terima kasih, Fauzan. Thank you, Fauzan. I think your excellent remark and also question. Yes, I think in the future, when the technology, we have the innovation for the alternative energy, I think palm oil will probably one of the commodity that you can look at to to see and also to convert, and also probably the competition between food, feed, and and fuel. Yeah, it will increase. I think.
Well,
Then it's better for consumer to diversify their menu.
exactly.
Decrease
It's better to
your
have one.
oil consumption, cooking oil from the palm oil. I think it would be better, yeah, in terms of the health. Okay, I think we have run out of time, and we would like to thank you to Prof. Otto. Let's give him a reaction, yeah. Thank you to Prof. Otto, yeah. And I think this is enrich our understanding about the importance of the public policy, and also when the consumer still demanding the cooking oil from palm oil, I think the problem and the issue still exists. Yeah, and
it still exists. Yeah,
of course, more and more research have to be conducted in order that the conductor issue the public policy that is suitable for all the stakeholders of the palm oil industry. Again, thank you very much, yeah, to all audience, yeah, and
I really like giving the presentation, and if you consider coming to Wageningen, you're welcome. Doing a master thesis, master study, or PhD, also through collaboration with IPB, of course, you're welcome.
Yeah, all students are invited. Yeah, I hope that you can go for your master, yeah, or your postdoctoral degree in Wageningen University and Research. Oke, Maul, ada sertifikat mau disampaikan, Maul? Halo, Edwin. Ya. Oke. Thank you.
Ya, terima kasih banyak.
Present, the certificate of operation, Prof. Otto. Thank you very much, yeah, for valuable lecture today, this afternoon, yeah, and I appreciate for your.
We meet again, huh?
Yes, for your holiday time, yeah, your break time. Yeah.
Terima kasih
Thank you very
banyak.
much, Prof. Otto. Yeah, and okay, we will take a picture with all the audience. Okay. Okay, Maul. Ya, tolong dipimpin, Maul. Okay, we will have silakan. Ya, pakai bahasa Indonesia aja, Maul.
Ya, baik, Prof. Mohon izin jaringannya agak sedikit lemah. Kami mengundang Bapak dan Ibu untuk mengaktifkan fitur video. Untuk sesi dokumentasi ini ada 9 slide. Baik, sepertinya untuk slide yang pertama sudah siap. Oke, mohon izin untuk memandu slide yang pertama. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3 untuk slide yang kedua. Oke, get ready. 1, 2, 3. Slide yang ketiga. 1, 2, 3 untuk slide yang keempat. 1, 2, 3 slide yang kelima. 1, 2, 3 slide yang keenam. 1, 2, 3.
Keenam sudah.
Slide yang ketujuh. 1, 2, 3 slide yang ke-8. 1, 2, 3 dan yang terakhir. 1, 2. Terima kasih banyak Bapak dan Ibu serta teman-teman. Prof, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Prof. Otto, our next plan B is July 22nd. we meet you
Yeah,
there.
yeah. I saw that. You're welcome.
Yeah. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Yeah.
We'll
Well,
meet
we are
again.
sorry we
Sampai bertemu.
cannot meet
Terima kasih banyak.
this week. Okay, see you.
Bye-bye.
Terima kasih Bapak Ibu semua ya. To my student, thank you untuk kehadirannya semuanya ya. Terima kasih banyak. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Terima kasih, Pak. Thank you, sir.
Terima kasih banyak.
Bye-bye.